If your project is already bound to another source control tool, this means that you'll be working in a dual-bound model. Of course, this depends on whether you want to continue using that tool after you join Central. You always have the option of first removing that binding in Flare and afterwards uploading your project to Central. If you do this, you would be using the single-bound model, where the project is bound only to Central. It's up to you. But if you decide you want to use the dual-bound model, you'll work just as you normally would with your main version control tool. When you want to move your latest files up to Central so you can build output, you click the Push button in the MadCap Central window pane. Here's an example of how it all might work with a team of users. Suppose there are 3 writers on your team: you, Bert, and Ernie. For some time, the 3 of you have been using Microsoft Team Foundation Server as your version control tool. Each of you has a local Flare project that's bound to Team Foundation Server. Then one day, your company subscribes to MadCap Central. However, you decide that you want to continue using Team Foundation Server at the same time. As the documentation team lead, you upload your Flare project to Central using the MadCap Central window pane in Flare. This creates a copy of the project in Central with a connection to your local Flare project. So now you have 2 bindings. Team Foundation Server is the first binding and remains your primary source control provider. The connection between Flare and Central serves as a secondary source control provider. Because you have user administration permission in Central, you invite Bert and Ernie to join the license. While doing this, you can give them the permissions that you want them to have. This includes the ability to push files to Central. However, you might decide not to give them this permission. Instead, you might want to be the only one who's allowed to push files to Central. By the way, the permission to pull files from Central is not relevant in a dual-bound model. After Bert and Ernie are added to Central, you create a team with the 3 of you as members. When creating this team, you also choose the Flare project that you uploaded. By doing this, you're associating Bert and Ernie with that project, thereby allowing them to work with it in Central. A team isn't the only way to associate users with a project, but it is one way to do it. Now you have to make sure that Bert and Ernie's local Flare projects are connected to the clone on Central. The first thing you do is check in changes from your local Flare project to Team Foundation Server. Next, from Central, you send your team a message asking them to do a GET from Team Foundation Server. So Bert and Ernie each open their local Flare project and get the latest files from Team Foundation Server. By doing this, they've each created a connection between their local Flare project and the clone on Central. Bert and Ernie then go back to Central and let you know it's done. Now that everyone has the connections they need, your team works just as they have in the past. You, Bert, and Ernie author content in your local Flare projects and use the source control ribbon to check in files, check out files, get files, and perform other source control tasks. Then, one day, you decide you're ready to build and publish some output. Using Central, you send a message to the team asking them to check in and get the latest files from Team Foundation Server. After Bert and Ernie do this, you also perform a GET. You now have the latest files in your local project. Next, you open the Central window pane in your Flare project and click this button to push the files to Central. The cloned project on Central is now up to date. So now that your cloned project in Central has the latest files, you open that project in Central and build some output. One final note before we go. If your primary binding is to Git, this situation is a bit unique and requires some different steps. For more information about this type of configuration, see this topic in the online help.